Alright, once again another updated deck profile. A deck profile I haven't updated for so long, ever since probably the original D set 13. Just because we got a new updated Avantgarda deck with, of course, the Richter. After for so long, we got like some small support here and there. Some of them actually pretty decent and a lot of them not being triple rares, funny enough. But a lot of good double rare support and in some cases even rare and common. Especially since we got a new strategy card which is definitely huge, along with some recent support in set 10 that is actually very strong and it's just a double rare along with a rare. And this new support actually changes up the deck build a bit that I felt like it's appropriate time to do the deck profile. So once again, how this deck playstyle works is that you basically put stuff to the order zone and then you put those order cards to your soul so you could activate their effects through Avantgarda's skill. That's basically the playstyle of the deck, and because you're putting those cards into soul, that means that soul is not really much of an issue for the deck because you're getting free soul just by using Avantgarda. Which is something I really love about the deck, especially with the SAO Eminence of the Shadow design, with the mecha. I think it's just awesome that I just ended up building the deck overall, and it was very cheap at the time, and overall the deck is still very cheap because most of the key pieces, you could probably get it for maybe $1 each at the most. And in some cases it could actually be very brutal and actually wins games because of it. So if you are a budget player, I think this deck might be for you. But there's also few weaknesses about the deck. One, being a brand gate deck plays a lot of set orders, and you have a lot of key pieces that you're forced to run, so you can't exactly run 4 copies for many cards. And 2, shieldless cards, which is another big factor of the deck because sometimes you will also have a problem where those 0 shield cards are going to be your key cards, so you kind of want to keep them, but at the same time you can't keep them because they're shieldless cards, which has lack of defense for this deck. So do keep those in mind, especially with the fact that, yes, you are still running a lot of key pieces for the deck that you are actually forced to sometimes discard them, so it does kind of suck sometimes. But with the recent new support, we do have more consistency searchers, of course, new strategy card, which is also a consistency support, along with some recovery support, which is actually very helpful for the deck. Even if it's not like the best recovery card, it is still very good for the deck. But anyway, there is one more weakness for the deck, and it's against the prison matchup. Your grade 0 is the most important card of the deck. You have to keep it in your soul no matter what, because the grade 0 is the pilot, and if you lose your pilot, you really cannot play the deck at all, because everything needs the pilot in soul. So keep that one in mind, and against the prison matchup, it can suck, because I have got my pilot arrested once before. But anyway, with all that out of the way, let's just begin the deck profile with, of course, the Ride deck. So starting off to the starter, the Sora period. Once again, you have to run this one because it's the pilot. It's the most important card of the deck for the deck to function. In which we start riding his mech, Dark Verdict Vidanis. So while you have your pilot in soul and you ride your grade 2 on top of it, you can search your deck for one grade 1 strategy order and put it to your hand, but if you fail, you call this card to rearguard. So you still get a +1 regardless, and you only run 1 copy of the grade 1 strategy, especially now that you don't really have much space. In which we go to the grade 2, which does exactly the same thing, except it searches out the grade 2, and it's only when your grade 3 Avantgarda rides on top of it. In which we go to Avantgarda himself, which I do hope that they do make an update for this, but it's kind of hard to make an update for this other than adding more skills. I'm just going to be realistic, because it has only one skill where act once per turn. While you have the Sora period in soul, you can put a strategy card from your order zone to the soul to draw a card, and then it gets +5k power along with this skill. And putting that strategy card to the soul will also trigger that strategy card's ability, by the way, which we'll go over later. But the skill that it gets is that at the end of battle, this card attack hits the Vanguard, or if you persona ride this turn, cost counterblast 1, discard card from hand to stand this unit with a dry -1 until the end of turn. Basically, it's a restanding Vanguard that revolves around having those order cards. So you activate your order card, that will also give it additional skills, and then also get a restand skill basically for basically 1 counterblast and 1 discard, which is actually pretty good. And you get a draw on top of it, so you actually negate that minus on top of it. So there's not really much to say here other than basically it's just a restanding Vanguard that also activates order cards. In which we now go to the main deck with 3 more for persona riding, because you do want to persona ride this, as you can tell from its skill, and that already revolves around having key pieces because of it. In which now we combine it with everyone to the Avantgarda Richter, because Avantgarda Richter is basically the upgraded form by combining all the other mechs into one, basically, because it's literally Avantgarda riding on top of the ultimate mech. So on hand, while your opponent's at least at grade 3, you can reveal this card from your hand and bind the Sky Render Avantgarda from your Vanguard and ride this as stand. And then until the end turn, it gets all the original ACK abilities from the card. So basically it gets the sucking the strategy card skill and the restand skill that comes along with it. That's basically what it is. But unfortunately, it does have to be the original Avantgarda, so if they do make a new Avantgarda, you cannot really use this card with it unless if it's treated as the original Avantgarda. So keep that one in mind. So by inheriting that skill, you of course can suck another one because your first grade 3 Avantgarda can suck the first one, get a draw, and then this one riding on top of the old one inherits the old Avantgarda skill to suck another one and also getting the restand skill on top of it. So that's already pretty strong. But it's also in combination with the third skill that makes this deck can be absurdly strong, where at the end of battle this card attacked and you have Sword Period Soul, you can discard 2 cards from your hand to choose a Skyrender Avantgarda from your bind zone and ride a stand with a plus 10k power with a drive -1. Basically, it's a triple Vanguard attack in a very fancy way. This one sucks 1 strategy card to soul, gets a restand ability. At the end of that first battle, you stand this one so you get the second Vanguard attack, and then with the second attack, use the third skill to discard 2 cards from your hand to superior write the original Avantgarda, which unfortunately cannot get the restand skill because that's an act to inherit the skill, so you get a third Vanguard attack. That's basically the idea of the deck. It's a triple Vanguard attack that does cost you a total of 3 cards to discard, so do kind of watch out for it, but you are getting your drive checks from it too, so you will have the cards for it, but it can be unfortunate if you have to discard those key pieces. But basically this is your big finisher offensive play that you're supposed to do, combined with the original Avantgarda basically. And then to the main cards, which are the strategy cards, starting off with the Shocking Strategy Death Wins, where when you put it to the soul from the order zone through Avantgarda's ability, you choose one of your Vanguards and then it gets the skill in the end turn. When this card attacks, your whole front row gets 5k. This is the one that you usually want to be using with Richter, or if you're staying on regular Avantgarda, this is the one that you want to use as basically your finisher play, because each attack will give your whole front row plus 5k, which in total will be 10k power. Not much to say here, it's just basically your finisher card combining with certain support cards that can even get more power, and it's also a deck that has too many key pieces that you don't really have much rearguard options, so you might be forced to put those grade 1s in the front. So next up to the new strategy card, Obliteration Strategy Resilience. So when this one you put to soul, you get one of the following abilities. You get the following abilities, not your Vanguard, you do. So this is very huge, as even if you ride to the new Avantgarda, you still actually get your skills. So the first one is during your first grade 3 ride usually, because at the end of battle your Vanguard attacked, if it was the first battle of the turn and it did not hit, I don't like the part where it has to be the first battle, but okay. Search your deck for up to 1 grade 3 Avantgarda and reveal it and then put it in your hand. That's very huge, as it literally sets you up for next turn, whether it's Persona ride or for your Avantgarda Richter. But the other skill that it can get is that when your Vanguard would be rolled upon, the riding unit would get all the trigger effects from your previous Vanguard, aka the skill for Avantgarda Richter, where if you put all your trigger abilities and then superior ride the original Avantgarda on top of it, the original Avantgarda will inherit all the trigger abilities. Yeah, this card is just very good, and it's just a common. You literally just either get a consistency search for what you need next turn, or you basically just inherit ultimate power from all your trigger abilities that you could probably lose from your drive checks. But thanks to this card, you don't really lose your trigger power anymore if you put them on your Vanguard. So yeah, this card is a must play, and you can directly search this through so many means that you don't need to run 4 of these, but 2 is a good number just in case one goes to the damage zone. And then to the remaining strategy, so to one of the old ones that you can probably take out, the Bomber Strategy Dusting gives plus 10k power to your Vanguard, and then your opponent cannot intercept or play blitz orders for the rest of the turn. Depending on the matchup, this could be very good, and especially on the early game, sometimes you will kind of want to use it for that extra power sometimes, but it's just here for additional option, but you don't really have to run it, so that's why I run it as a one-off. But one that you do have to run is the Kill Shroud, because this is the only grade 1 strategy card that you have to search with your ride line, and this one just straight up retire one of your opponent rearguard and plus 5k. Having retire option is pretty nice, although you just have better stuff to play than this, which is why this is only a one-off just for your ride line search. And so that's it for the strategy cards. Now for the main deck units. To the best card, Ala Dargente. If your Vanguard's Avantgarda and it attacks, plus 5k, and it's not once per turn, and considering that your Avantgarda can attack 3 times in a turn, this will get plus 15k, which is definitely huge. But the main skill is that when placed on rearguard and you play a strategy card this turn, by putting it to soul from your Avantgarda basically, you can search your deck or drop zone for a different one and put it to your hand, and of course shuffle your deck if you search from deck. So yeah, basically your big beater that also gives you recycling and searching. And it's also very huge that this does a Soul Blast because you're going to suck those strategy cards into Soul, so you can Soul Blast them out to recycle them as well. That's why you really want to run 4 of this. Originally, I was thinking about taking this out, but that Soul Blast is actually very crucial for the deck, especially for the deck that keeps constantly gaining Soul and needing to put the cards in the drop zone anyway, that you have to just run 4 of this because big beater as well. In which we go to the last of the grade 2s I was originally running for but got cut down, is Sabine. So keep in mind this card is blue Death Stir, but unfortunately is not a Byroroid. So that does suck that it's not a Byroroid because it's going to relate to one of the new support. So when placed on rearguard during your turn, or when discarded from your Vanguard's ability during your turn, you can Energy Blast 3 to put a strategy card from a drop zone back to your hand. Basically, it could be used as discard fodder or recycling, which is very nice, especially on top of the second skill where it's basically Dargente, where when your Vanguard attacks plus 5k, and it's not once per turn, so it could still get that 15k buff, but you are using a bit of energy for this deck, hence why I did cut this down, but it's also very good discard fodder while also being a big beater, so I do like to have a good number of these, so I think 3 is a good number. And then to a card that literally makes you have no counter charge problem is Hanada Hallway, which is also blue Death Star that is not a Byroroid unfortunately, because when placed on rearguard while your Vanguard's a blue Death Star, meaning that you could even use this on technically your grade 1 ride, although mostly grade 2 ride because you had to counterblast 1 so you can draw a card. Early game draw, which is pretty nice, and it could be an early game attacker, but you want this behind the Vanguard because when you put a strategy card to your order zone during the turn, into the end battle, plus 2k, and then if it's on the back row center column, you can countercharge 1. And yes, this is not once per turn, so you can actually restand this behind the Vanguard. You can get multiple counter charges in a turn. And this literally just sets you up for your counterblast for Avantgarda, because Avantgarda is the one that really needs to use the counterblast. This one doesn't really matter as much, and giving that free counter charge just for the boosting of the Vanguard is just very nice. Especially when you can actually use this more than once a turn, if you can actually restand this from the back row center, which currently we don't, but it is possible in the future. And also, it is your early game draw engine too, which is why you really want to run 4 of these, but you could run this as 3 of, just because it's draw power, and the deck doesn't entirely use too much counterblast thanks to this card, because this card keeps constantly countercharging. And then to another new card, and you must actually run this, it's better than I thought, is Macy Distance. So this new card, on place from hand, and your Vanguard's blue Death Star, meaning you can use this in the early game, especially on your first grade 1 ride. If you went second anyway, you can Energy Blast 3 to look at top 5 cards of your deck for 1 grade 3 or 1 strategy card from among them, and add it to your hand. Yes, it could still be a grade 3 regular order, by the way, because it could be any grade 3 card as long as it's not Regalis piece or strategy card, which is just basically very good for early game searching, kind of like the Cardinal one, except that it's not top 7 unfortunately, but still very good regardless because of it for early game searching, and it could set you up for your Avantgarda turns as well, which is also why I like this card. But the second skill is what actually makes this card really good, and why this is technically a 3 or 4 of depending on you, because it's act once per turn. If your Vanguard is blue Death Star, you can Soul Blast 1 to superior call a Byroroid blue Death Star that is grade less than or equal to your Vanguard, and call it to rearguard from the drop zone, but at the end of the turn you must retire that unit. Basically, it's a temporary unit for you to call, which is very huge. It's just unfortunate it has to be a Byroroid blue Death Star, which is right now only your ride line. That is a little unfortunate right now, but that 1 extra unit you call is very helpful, especially for a deck that constantly needs to discard those key pieces, and sometimes you don't even have good rear guards in the front row, so just having just an attacker is just very helpful. That's why I run this card, and it's another card that can Soul Blast, so you can put those key pieces back to the drop zone, and you could even just Soul Blast your grade 2 ride line card just to call it. In some cases, you could Soul Blast one of your extra copies of regular Avantgarda and just call it. So yeah, you have those options right there. That's why you kind of just want to run this just so you could have some extra attackers. And also the fact that this card searches as well, which is why this card is really good. Hopefully they do make more blue Death Star Byroroids in the future, especially for rearguard related support, because this card will get better over time. And then we run Asagi, which Asagi is technically the combiner pilot along with Hanada Hallway, but the skill is that when placed on rearguard while your Vanguard's Blue Death Star, you can counterblast 1 to choose one at least grade 3 Avantgarda from your drop zone to put it back to your hand. This is so you could at least use your grade 3 Avantgardas as discard fodder, and then you can recycle them. And also the recycling is also very important because you are discarding a lot of key pieces, like I said. So just having ways to recycle is just very helpful. And also you played a strategy order this turn plus 5k, which is also very helpful being a 13k attacker. So you just have to run this, although you might end up taking this out in the future, but right now it's one of your better options. And then finally to your last main grade 1 unit, it's the Nincom, which is also Blue Death Star. That is not a Bioroid once again, and it's an alien. So from the drop zone, you can bind this card if you did not bind a copy already, to choose a strategy card from the drop zone or from your hand and put it to the order zone. But if you put it from hand, you draw a card. This, technically another discard target, but it's also very nice that this card can activate another strategy card because you're activating 2 a turn. Your grade 2 ride gives you 1, your grade 2 ride gives you a second one, and you're playing 2 a turn, so you could actually end up running out strategy cards in your order zone, especially sometimes you want to play multiple in one turn. So this is just a way for you to play multiple strategies in a turn, and it's currently your only way actually, along with some generic support. So I think this is one of your better options just to run, just for the fact that you can reuse more than one strategy card in a turn, which is why I like this card. If you don't like this card, you could actually take it out for some other options, but personally it has been helpful to play that second strategy sometimes, so that's why I like it. And then finally, 4 PGs, because PGs. And into the trigger lineup, OT, kill your opponent fast as you can, 8 crits. And then we go to 3 draws, so you could get your key pieces, even though you do have to kind of watch out for your drive checks, but the deck doesn't entirely plus super quickly, so you're fine. And finally, 4 heals, 2 being counters. And so that's it for this deck profile on my Avantgarda deck, updated with the new strategy card with set 10 as well. What do you guys think of it? What other cards would you recommend and what other changes would you make? So far, I've been kind of liking the new cards as it is, especially with all the small support here and there, but the biggest one we definitely got was definitely the strategy card. Along with some small support that we recently got, this one was definitely very good. I do hope that they make more Blue Death Star Battle Royals in the future, because this card can actually turn insane, especially since this deck seems to get very good low rarity support. And overall, the deck is just still very fun. It could be very brutal, especially with the 3 Vanguard attacks and then your high power rearguard attacks. And the deck is still very budget friendly, that I could recommend this to basically budget players. But other than that, the deck still pretty much functions the same. Put your strategy card and then activate the skill. And then of course do your attacks with high power. And still having the problem where you have a lot of key pieces that are also very low shield value. So it is really hard to kind of build the deck, especially on what your ratios would be, because you cannot really risk running 4 copies of so many cards. So that is a bit unfortunate. But I do kind of like the deck flexibility as well, so that's why I kind of end up building the deck, especially with the Eminence of the Shadow SAO design with the mecha. So I just overall just like it because of that as well. But other than that, there's really not much to say about this, just because the deck is pretty much still the same. And see you all next time.